Good afternoon. The United States has established numerous military bases across the world. The United States has a base in Japan since the conclusion of World War II. Aside from this aid, the United States has contributed around $38 billion in economic aid. Should the United States continue to desecrate its troops and other military resources to countries like Japan? Furthermore, should the United States continue to contribute large amounts of financial aid to developing countries?
Before I answer this question, I want you to get some background about me. I'm from a military family. My father's in the military in the Marine Corps for 32 years. My father-in-law is in the Air Force. My brother was in the Navy. My brother-in-law was in the Marine Corps for 28 years. I've got 3 nephews in the Navy, 2 nephews in the Navy and 1 in the Marine Corps. Should we have bases overseas? You bet we should. Should we have as many as we have? No, we should not. Many of you remember World War II. We have a new enemy on our horizon. It's called China. It's called Russia. It's called Iran. It's called Syria. We have all our troops in the U.S. We're going to have a very difficult time getting them overseas to protect our interests. Yes, we should reduce the number of bases, but no, we should not close all of our bases overseas. We need to take foreign aid and use it towards our benefit, not to our desecration. Thank you.
Mr. Winston.
I do have some military experience. I lived for a year and a half at the huge naval base at Subic Bay in the Philippines, which was closed down because the Filipinos decided they were sick of us because we didn't behave well, and we gave them lots of money. They still said no, get out, because it was their country, and we acted. Some people over there acted like it was our country. And I've said this before. This is 2012. This isn't the Middle Ages. This isn't the 17th or 18th century. The only enemies, you mentioned China or Russia, these people are our partners now. We've got so much investment in Russia and China that we're like brothers. We shouldn't be talking like that they're our enemies or could be our enemies. It's almost the same thing with Iran. If you really go over there, Iran are the Persians. They're a great civilization, and I'll just let it go at that. I'm a gradualist. We need to be making more friends and fewer enemies.
Ms. Jen Redd.
This is a really good question. Having worked with the State Department and having worked in national defense myself, both in and out of uniform, I'd have to say that the State Department and our national policy uses 3 prongs in their effort to deal with our enemies and with our friends. And those 3 prongs are diplomacy, and economics, and military. Now, first we try to deal with diplomacy, and we get them to the table and tell them what we'd like them to do. When that doesn't work, then we kind of financially strong-arm them into what we want them to do. And when that doesn't work, we kick their ass. But that's the way it goes. Sometimes you do a cost-benefit analysis, and you say to yourself, is it worth the cost to get into a nasty war with someone, or is it better to give them a little bit of money and do a little trading with them than to get in a big, full-blown out war? So those are the 3 things we always have to look at when dealing with this. Yes, there are bases that we need to close and shuffle around, but we need to stay right put in some of our hot spots.
Mr. Jordan.
I heard someone say something the other day I thought was kind of funny. The fellow said, I know there's no such thing as aliens in outer space because we would have found a way to send them some foreign aid by now. I thought that was very telling on the status of our government. But just like every other aspect of our government, we need to go back to drawing board, I guess you'd say. Where are we getting a return on our investment with money we're sending overseas, and where are we flat out just wasting it? Where are we giving it to folks, as we do and have a history of lately, of giving money to folks in countries that not just hate us, but hate our way of life? We need to stop that. We need to reevaluate why we're doing that. As far as our military bases, we have a responsibility and obligation to have a presence in the world. We just need to do a better job of making sure we're in the right places and not, again, wasting money in certain places. Military, we have a responsibility to them to provide them the best equipment, give them the best opportunity to be safe and successful on our behalf. But every area of our government has a responsibility to be good stewards with the tax dollars that we invest in.
Mr. Prosser.
National security is about one thing. It's about protection of American lives, and that is not only American lives here at home, but also the lives of our military men and women when we send them in harm's way. So when we talk about projecting military power in the world, we need to take that into account. That needs to be the first thing that we look at. Now, asking our allies, particularly those like Japan and our allies in Europe, whom we have protected for so long, to pay more of that cost, I think is perfectly appropriate. And when we are running trillion-plus budget deficits year after year after year, we need to pare back everywhere, and we need to ask the world to contribute more to its own security. We certainly don't need to be funding nations that are coming back and throwing back in our face policies that are not productive and do not support the national security of the United States or enhance the protection of American lives.
I'd like to rebut on something he said.
I don't think he directly,
Okay. Oh, it wasn't to me, it was something he said.
I don't know if that warrants that, Ms. Jen, right? Let's go to Mr. Wallace for a minute.
I think that in a nutshell, when it comes to foreign policy, we need to look after American interests. We need to have a very strong Navy, we need to have very strong special forces, and we need to have a very strong intelligence operation going on. I think we need to reach out to the Indians to help counterbalance China, which is certainly on the move around, at the South China Sea and around the world. They are becoming the emerging superpower, the other one in the world. I think the most dangerous place in the world is Iran, and we need to isolate them. We need to take advantage of the problems going on with the Azeris who want out of that relationship. We need to take advantage of the Persians who rioted in the streets. Our intelligence people could do a lot to foster a regime change in Iran, and that's something that I think we need to do. I think we need to make it very clear to countries like Pakistan that you're not going to harbor terrorists in your borders. It's ridiculous that Osama bin Laden was able to hide there for 6 years in that house. And finally, I think we need to face the facts that we need to have a strong presence everywhere in the world because it's a dangerous world, and if it's not us, who's going to stand up for freedom in the world? We are the ones who do that. Should we ask our allies in places like Japan to chip in? Yes. Do we need to look at where our bases are? Yes. But we need to have a presence in the world.
Mr. Bauer, 1 minute.
I think we need to quit being the world's policing power. We probably should look at getting out of the UN. If we don't get out of the UN, we need to at least go back and revamp our pro rata share that is highly disproportional. Let me tell you, I was in Jordan, I think it was Jordan I was in, and they took U.S. foreign aid out of U.S. bags because they didn't want the people to know that the aid was coming from the U.S. and they put it in a non-descriptional bag so they didn't even know where the aid was coming from. Folks, we can't continue to take care of the world. We are $15 trillion plus in debt. We got to take care of ourselves or we will be a country that no longer exists. Now I will say this, we've got to be strategic, and several people up here have said that. We've got to pick our partners. We know we have a friend in Israel. We know we have a strategic place where we've got to protect our friends and we've got to have help in the Middle East. But we cannot continue to have bases around the world that are not productive and we are doing somebody else's policing for them.
I want to start by saying that we've got to continue to support our very strong military protection. Borders is one of the powers that absolutely is reserved by the federal government. The federal government needs to fulfill that responsibility. But second, we cannot afford to be the world's policeman. I believe that our biggest national security threat is not Iran, it's ourselves. It's the federal government. We are spending ourselves into bankruptcy. We cannot continue down this path. You know, if we do this for 4 more years, we'll owe $22 trillion in debt. The interest rate won't be 2% anymore, it'll be 10%. The interest on the debt will take up every dime that we're taking in right now. Charity begins at home. We got to take care of ourselves first.